Thank you very much for meeting me today.
My pleasure.
Can you please introduce yourself?
Yep, my name is Watkins and I'm a stage manager.
And how did you become a stage manager?
When I was at school, I was involved with school productions and also in the local youth theatre. And I really enjoyed being in the theatre and part of shows, but didn't enjoy necessarily acting and performing on stage. So when I was 14, my youth theatre leader offered me the opportunity to try stage management on one of the youth theatre productions. And at that time I didn't know what stage management was, but I thought, hey, I'll try it anyway. And at that point I decided it was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, and since then I haven't looked back. So I went and did A-levels in drama and theatre studies, and then went to train in stage management at the Central School of Speech and Drama in London, where I did a stage management degree. And in my final term at the college, I was lucky enough to get an internship at the National Theatre, and then was taken on as an assistant stage manager. And from there, I went on to start my career in stage management.
And how did you get that internship?
I wrote letters, sent emails, phone called until someone responded, and kept pestering until I got where I wanted to be. So persistence.
And can you tell me about your responsibilities as an assistant stage manager and as a stage manager?
Sure. So, as an assistant stage manager, as the title alludes, you are assisting the stage manager in delivering the stage management function of the show. Specific responsibilities for an assistant stage manager is looking after the props and furniture. And obviously, initially you're all part of the rehearsal process. You're based in the rehearsal room, so that's your first duty, is to facilitate the room there, make sure that the actors and creative team have everything they need to create the piece of theatre. So that can be anything from sourcing rehearsal props to marking out the sets on the floor, to make sure there's tea and coffee, and just generally assisting in making that room run smoothly and efficiently. And then when you move into the theatre, as an assistant stage manager, you are normally assigned to one side of the stage, so stage left or stage right, and you're responsible for running that wing or that side of the stage, managing the crew, managing all the logistics, entrances, exits, storage, presets, and assisting the stage manager by overseeing that geographical location within the theatre.
And can you tell me about calling the show?
Sure, calling the show tends to be done by the deputy stage manager, which is one step up from an assistant stage manager, and one step below a stage manager, normally. The deputy stage manager is on the book in the rehearsal room, first and foremost. They are sat next to the director with the script or score, and are notating all of the information relating to the creation of that show. So that could be the blocking, where the actors stand and they move. It could be any notes that come up through the rehearsal process, like we need this, we need that, can this be a certain way, and they help create the rehearsal report with the stage manager and the ASMs, which then goes out to the wider production team to notify them of what's happened on the rehearsal room floor that day and what the requirements are moving forward. So in the rehearsal room, the deputy stage manager's sort of on the book behind a desk, prompting, recording moves, making notes. And then moving into the theatre, they're responsible for calling the show. So they will be putting together a call script or a prompt script with all of the lighting cues, sound cues, special effects, automation, if it's automation, flying, entrance exits, and they really are conducting the orchestra. Sort of hands-on controls of the plane, and the ones actually steering the ship under the supervision of the stage manager, who's overseeing everything, but they're the ones that are saying go. That tends to be the deputy stage manager who takes on that responsibility.
And what is it like to work with automation?
Automation is something that I find quite interesting to work with, because it's quite a large technical challenge. Artistically, it can contribute positively to a show because it makes the scenography look more interesting because it's not just static, it moves and it's animated. And it also helps with the transitions and scene changes because they can be more consistent because you're recording the movement of a piece of scenery or a lift or a piece of flying so that it's consistent every night. Obviously with automation comes a lot of health and safety implications, so certainly for a stage manager that's a big part of their job to make sure that that's set up safely and run the technical rehearsal in such a way that everything is tested and runs smoothly before you add the actors, and then when you add the actors that they know exactly what's going to happen, where and when, and then on top of that you're also thinking about the contingency procedures for when automation goes wrong. So your job as a stage manager is to think about how to get out of those situations and what to do if something isn't how it was the night before.
And when you're calling the show, are you calling it off the monitors or?
At times, you're calling it off multiple things. First of all, you're calling it from the script or the score. It's a ballet or an opera or a musical, and that's where you've recorded all of the information and what you need to say. Cues may be related to a certain line in the show or a certain beat in the music. For example, a lighting change may need to happen. So at that point you are looking at the script or the score, but you also need to be looking at the monitors. You can't see the stage directly with where you're sat. You need monitors to actually see what you're cueing. A, to make sure that what you've cued has happened, because there's no point saying go and someone's missed the cue, it doesn't happen, you've not noticed, it's your job to notice that. But also you may have visual cues, so you may have to cue something as an actor moves in a certain direction, and then as well as that you need to make sure that things are safe. So if you're calling a piece of flying coming in, you need to look at the monitor to make sure that it's clear, in conjunction with the stage management on the deck who are spotting it. You would use a monitor for that. You also might have a monitor for the conductor. So if it's a musical, opera or ballet, the lighting, the scenery and the automation may be related to the music, in which case you need to watch the conductor to see when he or she is starting the music, cutting off the music, cueing a certain beat. So that may be another monitor that you need to watch.
And what do you like the most about your job?
I like the fact that I'm part of the creative process. So I enjoy the fact that I get to be in the rehearsal room with the director, with the actors, as the show is created, and to an extent contribute to that process. And I also like the fact that it's a communication job, so you get to talk to everybody involved in the production. You have relationships and interactions with all of the production team, artistic team and the actors. So it's a job that lends itself to someone who enjoys talking to people.
And do you have any special theatre traditions?
I don't actually. I'm the least superstitious person you'll meet, so all of the things that you hear in old tales and certain words that you're not allowed to say, I respect it, but I don't observe them personally.
And people around you, like, do you say the last line during the dress rehearsal?
I think that's, in my experience, that's quite an old-fashioned tradition, so I've not experienced that much in my career. So no, I don't really notice that much, to be honest, in the work that I do.
What do you think is the most common misconception about the job of a stage manager?
That's a good one. Maybe that we just boss people around for a living, which potentially could be the image that is portrayed of a stage manager in the media or the movies of, you know, someone autocratic yelling and bossing and shouting at people, but certainly the way I approach the job and the good stage managers that I know, that's certainly not the case, but maybe that might be an inaccurate preconception that people might have.
And what makes a good stage manager? What qualities do you need to succeed in this job?
Well, the most important thing is that you have to enjoy it and really love it, because the hours can be very antisocial, and often you are working long hours for not always that much money. So you have to enjoy it and have to have a passion, because otherwise I don't think you can do the job to the level of commitment that it needs. And certainly also you need to be someone who is objective and can consider many different points of views and different personalities and adapt the way you communicate, and be someone that enjoys being with actors and creative people and supporting them in creating their work. It's definitely a job for someone who isn't out for themselves. The job is about supporting other people in realising their vision.
What's your schedule like?
The schedule can vary depending on whether you're in rehearsal, tech or performance. If you're in rehearsal, you may start at 10 in the morning, in which case certainly in by 9:30, half an hour before, to make sure the room is set, ready for the day. And that can take you all the way through to 6 o'clock. And then by the time rehearsals finishes, then you have the rehearsal notes to produce and the room to tidy up, so you may not get out until 7 o'clock. In tech, the hours are much longer because there's so much to get done in a short period of time. So you may be in at 9 o'clock in the morning to set up and then start teching at 10. And then sometimes you can be doing 3 session days in tech, so you do a morning session, an afternoon session, and an evening session. So those days can get pretty tiring because you can be doing, sort of 12, 13, 14-hour days. And then hopefully once you get into the performance schedule, it starts to get a little bit easier, and you move to working evenings rather than mornings. So if it's just an evening show, 7:30 for example, you may arrive at 5 o'clock to start the preset, which essentially is putting everything back to where it needs to be to start the show. And there may be some warm-ups if it's a musical, so you make sure the stage is ready for the actors to come down and do their physical warm-up and their musical vocal warm-up. And then that takes you up until the half-hour call, which in the UK is 35 minutes before the show starts. So at that point you are doing your final checks and making sure that the stage is set and everything is where it's meant to be. Often you do a shout check, so you have a list of where all the props are meant to be and you go around with the team and make sure that everything's checked off. And then the show. It's, very often shows run for about 2.5 hours in intervals, so usually comes out to between 10 and 10:30. So a performance day may potentially be shorter than a tech day and a rehearsal day, but obviously then you have matinees as well, so on a matinee day you may be in at noon working all the way through to 10, so it's certainly long hours.
And what is the most challenging aspect of being a stage manager?
Well, I'd say the most challenging aspect is probably the same as the most enjoyable aspect in terms of the way you interact with people. I enjoy working with people, but sometimes it can be challenging, especially working with creative people who are passionate about their vision, creating their work. Emotions can run quite high, and with that can come short tempers and friction. As a stage manager, you're there to manage that, understand it, be sympathetic to it, but sometimes that can be a challenge, but it's one that I enjoy.
What do you remember about your first day of work in the West End?
Well, my first job in the West End was as an ASM dep on We Will Rock You, the Queen musical at the Dominion Theatre. And I was 18, so I was completely overwhelmed and in awe by the scale of the show and the theatre that I was working in, having worked in much smaller theatres back home where I'm from. So certainly the scale was the most overwhelming thing, and also the amount of technology and automation that I'd never seen before, so it was quite spectacular and overwhelming for an 18-year-old first starting in the West End, but one that I remember very fondly. I had a great time on that show, so I look back on it with fond memories.
And how frequently do you have to travel for your work?
Well, it depends really. Often at the moment, the past few years I've worked mainly in London, and I live in London, so it's just a case of commuting, but I've also worked internationally with Circus so I worked all around the world touring with Soleil and in North America, in New York City, and Montreal, and that was 3 years travelling. I've also gone away and worked on various events around the world, for example the Sochi Winter Olympics, where I had to move to Russia for 3 or 4 months. So it depends on the job, the scale of the job, and how long they can afford to bring people out. But certainly there is the potential to see the world with this job, which is something that I love.
And what was it like to work in Sochi?
Sochi was great. It was my second Olympic Games, having worked on the London 2012 Olympics, so I had some experience of working on an event of that size. Obviously Sochi was the Winter Olympics, whereas I've worked on the Summer Olympics, so the weather definitely has a big impact on the experience, although in Sochi it really wasn't that cold. But it was on the Black Sea, so it was very windy. We were rehearsing outdoors in tents on a big outdoor site, so it was a challenge in that respect. The biggest thing that I enjoy about working on Olympics is working with the volunteers, because most of the casts are volunteers and come from the local community. So it was fascinating working with all the Russian volunteers on that show and experiencing a new culture and to an extent learning a new language. I managed to get by. And I think it was a really impressive show and something that Russia could be very proud of. And I was thrilled to get the opportunity to go and work in that country for such a long period of time. So again, it's another project that I've got great memories of.
What is it like to stage manage events like this in comparison to working in the theatre?
There are differences for sure, although I try to look at the function the job is exactly the same. Essentially, you're making sure that everything and everyone is in the right place at the right time. It's the same in theatre and in events. The scale in events tends to be a lot bigger, so there are more performers, more technicians, but there are normally more stage management as well. It's relative to that larger scale. The biggest difference with events is that very often you only do them once. So, for example, with an Olympics opening ceremony, you could be rehearsing for 3 or 4 months, and then you get one chance to do it. Unlike working on a West End show where you're doing 8 shows a week, you get another chance to do it the next night. With an event, you're working for months and months and months, and then you have the pressure on the night of not being able to stop or go back or trying again. That's it. So that's certainly something that's different and can be pressurised, but it's a pressure that I enjoy and it's very exciting.
And what is it like to work abroad, in comparison to working in UK?
Very different depending on which country you're in, really. I've worked a lot in North America and a lot in New York. And New York is a city I love working in because they have a thriving theatre scene there, both Broadway, off-Broadway, Lincoln Centre. But they have a different stage management structure to the UK, so the way they allocate roles in the US is different to how we do it in the UK. For example, as the head stage manager in the UK, I don't call the show, it's the deputy stage manager that calls the show. Whereas in the US, it's the head stage manager or the production stage manager who calls the show, and then the assistants run the deck. It's also much more departmentalised in the US, so you have a carpentry department, a prop department, with heads of each department that take responsibility for that jurisdiction, whereas in the UK, stage management, we handle the props and furniture, so it's slightly different allocation of responsibilities, essentially doing the same job, but in a slightly different approach.
What advice would you give to someone who is interested in this career?
I would say start doing the job. Start getting involved in shows, and by that I don't necessarily mean going out and getting a professional job, but start working on shows, whether it be at school, in youth theatre, local amateur companies, and actually get stuck in and start understanding what the skills are that you need to be a good stage manager. And you only really discover those by practical experience. So I'd say even before you consider going to drama school or theatre school, I'd say it's great to have some practical experience of doing the job, because you may well find out that there's another discipline backstage that you enjoy, whether it be lighting or sound. The stage management very often the discipline that people first try out. So I would say sooner rather than later start getting involved in shows would be my advice.
And is it required to go to university?
Not necessarily. I did, but I know lots of fantastic stage managers who didn't. I think more and more people these days are going to university, but I think that's simply because there are more courses than there were, say, 20 years ago. But it's definitely a good opportunity to learn the craft and get experience in a protected environment where you can make mistakes and you're not being paid to do a job, so you have the opportunity to experiment and try things. So I would advocate it if you have the means to do so. However, I certainly wouldn't say that you can't be a stage manager without going to drama school.
And what do you wish you knew when you just were starting out?
It's a tough one. I guess I wish I knew how exciting the career was going to be, and how many opportunities were going to come my way, because I maybe wouldn't have worried so much about succeeding, getting there quickly. I may well have paced myself a little better, but I certainly have no regrets.
And what's your definition of success?
It's a very good question. I would say that you enjoy going to work, and if you're really lucky, you have options, choices, what you get to work on. If you have options, you get to choose, then I think that's a really lucky position to be in.
Is there anything you would like to talk about? Something I should have asked you about?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything.